Good morning, everyone. Hope you're all having a wonderful day today. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Athlon Helos BTR GEN2 1:10 by 28 millimeter LPVO. But before we get into the video, if you don't know, Gun Deals is a website that compiles some of the best deals and products in the industry. Whatever it is that you happen to be looking for can probably be found for the best possible price on their website. So if you like saving money on cool stuff, or if you just like perusing and finding deals you didn't know you needed beforehand, go ahead and check them out. Once again, that is gun.deals. Now, importantly, they don't buy or sell anything. They only point you in the right direction. Now, with all of that out of the way, full disclosure on the Athlon Helos BTR GEN2 is this optic was actually provided to me by Optics Planet. I asked to review it and they said sure, so they sent it out to me for free. I don't have any relationship with Athlon, but I didn't pay for the scope either. The mount that it's in I did pay for from Aero Precision, but again, remember that the scope I didn't pay for, though I have no relationship with the manufacturer, and Optics Planet does not care what I say about it one way or the other. Now, getting into basics on the Athlon BTR GEN2 1:10, this is more of an MPVO, if you will, not really a low power variable optic. This is definitely a medium power variable optic. So you of course get one on the low end, all the way out to 10x magnification on the high end. This is a 34 millimeter main tube, which means that you get a much larger 28 millimeter objective lens versus the 24 millimeter that you get on most of your 30 millimeter main tube LPVOs. What that means is that this is a little bit thicker and bigger in certain ways than other LPVOs. However, the weight comes in at a very low, for its size, 18.3 ounces. Now, 18 ounces is very low in general for LPVOs. It's lighter than a lot of 1-6s, 1-8s. A lot of the Vortexes and other LPVOs are starting at around 23, 24 ounces. And for the magnification coming in at 18 ounces, is a very lightweight package, especially considering that it is, again, a larger 34 millimeter main tube. Now, it's not a super light LPVO, and it's not a super small LPVO, but it is, again, incredibly weight efficient for its size and magnification range. Now, the body itself is made out of 6061 T6 aluminum, all good there, very standard. We have capped, elevation, and windage, and the increments themselves are in half MOA, which for me is perfectly fine. Some people might like to see quarter MOA, however, half MOA for still a mid-range optic for me is perfectly fine. The clicks themselves are soft and a little mushy. However, you're really not going to be dialing with them, as this is definitely more of a set and forget and then use the BDC, which we'll get into a little bit later on. Now, they didn't skimp on the illumination either. So on the left-hand side, you of course have your illumination dial. It goes from 1 to 6. It doesn't have any sort of night vision settings. However, it does have an off setting in between each click. They're very noticeable and very easy to tell when it's on or off. And on top of that, very pleasantly surprised on max illumination, which is 6 in this case, it is one of the brighter budget LPVOs, on par with basically anything sub $600 except for the Vortex Viper PST Gen 2 with the fiber optic LED illumination. So the illumination, which illuminates the center dot and the BDC portion of the reticle, not the windage, but the BDC portion of the reticle, gets more than bright enough. And I would say it is daylight tinted, though again, it's not going to be that fire hot red dot bright illumination, though the reticle kind of makes up for that. Now, moving back from there, we of course have our illumination ring. Now, from 1 to 10 is just a 180-degree throw, which is fairly standard, so it does zoom in fairly quickly. Now, the adjustment itself feels smooth, however, it is fairly light. Now, the reason that it's light and why I kind of like that on this optic is because it does not come with a throw lever. On the magnification ring, it does have about a 1/2 inch raised knob on it. However, it's not really what I would consider a throw lever, though if you have good grip on it, you can definitely get it from 1 to 10 fairly quickly. The only real other thing of note on the optic itself is in the back we have our diopter, of course, which will adjust the reticle to your eyes. Very important on a 1 to 10 to make sure that the reticle is set up for your eyes. Everybody's eyes are a little bit different. I usually leave it all the way back in as I have very, very good vision, though that will also vary on scope to scope. Now, mine also came with these fairly inexpensive scope caps, and I will probably leave them on until I inevitably break or lose them. Now, getting into the eye relief, field of view, eye box, all that sort of fun stuff. The field of view at 1x is rated at 110 feet. Now, if you know my rating, anything above 100 is good, anything above 110 is excellent. So this is really in that not quite excellent category, but it still has very, very good field of view, especially when we're considering a 1 to 10 LPVO. Now, the eye relief is quoted at 3.2 inches, though that is for the 10x magnification, I would assume. On 1x magnification, what you get is a very long, very forgiving eye box. You have like 2 full inches where you can see the entire reticle without any scope shadow whatsoever. So on 1x, again, it's very forgiving. Now, the eye box itself is also really good on 1x. You get almost 3/4 of an inch in any direction on 1x, meaning that it is very usable from odd shooting positions. If you're shooting on top of the hood of a car, around a corner, something like that, if you don't have your head perfectly behind the optic, you're still going to get a fairly decent sight picture. Now, when we flip all the way up to 10x, most of you already know this, with most LPVOs or MPVOs in this case, as you get higher into that magnification ring, the eye relief tightens up, the eye box tightens up, and it becomes much less forgiving. Now, the advantage here is that we have a 34mm main tube, which gives us a 28mm objective lens, which means that this, on 10x, is actually more forgiving than a lot of other LPVOs on 6 or 8x due to the tube size, larger objective lens, giving us a more forgiving exit pupil. So on 10x, you still get that 3.2, and it is definitely tighter forward and back. Your left and right, instead of a full like 3/4 of an inch or so, you probably get about 1/4 of an inch. So it's definitely tighter, and it's definitely tighter left and right as well as forward and back. But overall, again, it is better than some other budget LPVOs on 6 or 8x, meaning that you get a optic that is very, very usable on 1x for fast moving, odd positions, so on and so forth. And then even if you're taking longer shots, even if you're not in the most conventional positions, it is still easy to do. So in terms of field of view, eye relief, eye box, all of that sort of stuff that actually helps you use the optic, you really can't ask for much more when you're considering that this is a 1 to 10 LPVO that you can get for less than $500 in a lot of cases. Now, getting into the glass quality, this is going to be the one area that is just below other budget LPVOs. For instance, right here I have the SIG MSR 1 to 6, which is a little bit of a newer optic as well. But one thing, these are all manufactured overseas in China. I believe you do get Chinese glass. Chinese glass is perfectly fine for 99% of people out there. Some people will need better glass for more crispness, clarity, light transmission, all that sort of stuff. While this is good, the image looks just fine. The 1x performance is good. Even all the way out to 10x, the image is still decent. However, you will notice that the glass quality is somewhat reduced from even other budget 1 to 6, 1 to 8 LPVOs, as it's just a little bit dimmer. It's not quite as crisp as other Chinese glass optics. So while it's not bad by any means, this is definitely one of the sacrifices that they're making to cram a 1 to 10 in a optic that is this big and this light. The optic quality is decent, but not great and certainly not exceptional. Now, the last thing that we're going to talk about before we get into the actual reticle itself is going to be the 1x image, because that is one of the most important things on an LPVO, is going to be its 1x image performance combined with the reticle illumination, all that sort of stuff. But the 1x image itself, referring to the optical quality, is a fairly decent 1x. It looks on par again with a lot of other Chinese optics. The optical quality itself might be slightly lower, but the image itself is fairly flat. There is a little bit of fisheye, a little bit of warping going on. It's not a perfect true 1x image. However, again, for the money and the feature set that we're getting here, the 1x is actually better than some other budget LPVOs on the market, whether those are 1 to 6s, 1 to 8s. For instance, again, comparing the 1 to 6 MSR from SIG, that has a massive 124 feet field of view at 1x. However, you will notice a little bit more warping. It's not quite as natural looking. So even though this has a little bit less field of view, still very, very good field of view on the BTR Gen 2 1 to 10. However, the image quality itself, in terms of how natural it looks as at 1x, is a little bit better in my opinion. Now, the last thing that we need to get into on the BTR Gen 2 1 to 10 is going to be the reticle. Now, the name of the reticle on this specific model is the ATMR4, I want to say. It is a BDC reticle that is calibrated for 68 or 69 grain 5.56, which is a little bit of an odd choice, though we'll get into that a little bit later on. Now, the reticle itself is, again, a BDC reticle that is calibrated for a 50/200 yard zero, again, with that kind of specific ammunition, though it worked well for us with just 55 grain as well. Now, starting out with the center of the reticle, in the center we have a very simple 1 MOA dot, which is perfectly fine for me. That is more than accurate enough, especially for quick shooting in between 50 and 200 yards. That's going to be our point of aim. Now, on the outside of that, to help with fast acquisition, we of course have MOA ranging ladders kind of bringing our eyes to the center on the horizontal plane, and then of course the BDC underneath the dot. Then around the dot on the top, we also have some kind of cutout portions, you know, half circle, if you will, to kind of help draw your eye to the center and to use as a very fast flash sight picture if you're shooting at targets very close. Now, the center dot, the half circle, and the BDC are all illuminated. The wind holds and the MOA ladders on the side for horizontal ranging are not illuminated. Now, getting into the BDC itself, again, it is kind of calibrated for an odd ammunition choice, being 68 or 69 grain 5.56. However, you can very easily extrapolate that out to other ammunition choices, especially because they give you the actual MOA subtension data within the reticle spreadsheet. So you can actually go in there and then true that out for your specific load if you know your barrel length velocity with a specific ammunition combo. Now, the BDC, of course, for 5200 is going to be the center dot, and then you have hash marks for 3, 4, 5, 6, and 700 yards. Now, very importantly, and something that a lot of scopes miss out on, is the fact that it also gives you wind holds for full value 5 and 10 mile an hour wind holds. For me personally, that is very important. Usually where I shoot in Capitol Forest, it can be quite windy, and so going out to 5, 6, or even 700 yards with light 55 grain ammunition means that you're going to need those wind holds, even as a reference point. Now, this optic going out to 700 yards, though currently we've only taken it out to about 500, taking this optic with this reticle out to 700 yards would not be any problem whatsoever. It gives you enough information within the reticle, certainly a good BDC with good wind holds, no problems there. On top of that, it also gives you 10x magnification, which is going to outclass, again, almost every other LPVO on the market.
Just up. There you go. Left edge plate.
Still left edge.
Yep, left edge plate. Middle of plate, little low. That looked like center left. Center, center. Good hold.
Oh.
Just off the right edge. Center, center, perfect hit. Hit it.
So in terms of BDC plus wind holds for long range plus fast acquisition at 1x, it does all of those things very well. My only complaint there is that for some reason it is calibrated for 68, 69 grain 5.56, where it should probably either be for 55 grain or for 75, 77. Most people that I know of personally are either using one or the other, though again, you can use the MOA data that they provide to extrapolate that for your specific barrel length and even caliber if you wanted to use different calibers, of course, as well. And then you could actually just write it down on the inside of your scope cap, and that way there you would know that at 3 you're actually at 330, or 4 is 415, so on and so forth, to true it out for your specific ammunition caliber barrel length combo. Now, there is one other trick within the reticle as well, and that is that you get 36-inch torso auto ranging in the bottom of the reticle. Now you also get 18-inch shoulder height width auto ranging as well. So while it does have a good BDC, good wind holds, good fast acquisition at 1x, it also has auto ranging. Now the auto ranging is good and definitely a worthy addition in just about any reticle out there. The one thing that I would say is that usually you can also incorporate that within the reticle itself, so you don't need to hold the reticle off in space to figure out your distance and then bring the reticle back down to target. With a lot of the ACSS reticles, which are admittedly a little bit better and more feature packed than this is, a little bit better thought out as well, you don't really have to move away, find your range, and then move back to target. You can actually auto range using the reticle and then just take the shot when you found the appropriate range. So while the reticle gives you basically all of the features you could want in a reticle, they might not be arranged or calibrated perfectly. So if I was to give this a number rating out of 10, I would probably settle on an 8. It's very good. All of the ideas are there. They're just not quite perfectly executed. So overall, the reticle is what I would consider very usable, and it's going to get you out to that 700 yards, no problem. Most people probably won't be taking most of their guns out to 700 yards, but with this MPVO, it does extend the range that you can take a LPVO out to, because again, this is more of an MPVO, and it also does retain a lot of that 1X performance. So at the end of the day, this was very easy to use up close, transition from targets, has a very forgiving eye box, eye relief, and field of view at 1X. The reticle is very good for fast acquisition. The center dot plus the half circle above it, it illuminates bright enough for most scenarios to where it even helps me pick it up a little bit faster. So overall, the reticle does a very good job at 1X. Not a perfect job out to distance. The reticle BDC is calibrated a little weird, though again, you can transpose that into whatever caliber and ammunition combo you want to. However, again, just not executed quite perfectly. For the money, I think that this is an excellent LPVO. It's not the best distance optic for sub $500. It's not the best 1X optic for sub $500. But if you had to do both of those things in a single optic package that doesn't weigh very much, now with this optic and the Aero Precision 34mm ultralight scope mount, you're looking at a total package of around 22 ounces for a 1 to 10 capable optic that is actually usable at all of those distances. Now, some people might also complain that it's not first focal plane, as this is a second focal plane optic. However, for me personally on 5.56, it's not a big complaint, as between 1 and 300 yards, I am not using the BDC at all. Even at 300 yards, you really only have about 6 inches of drop if you're using a 5200 zero. So if you can't hold over 6 inches at 300 yards, your depth perception is just really bad. Maybe that's a slight downside. And then personally, if I'm beyond 300 yards, I'm probably already at 10x magnification. And remember, we do have a good field of view that we're working with as well. So you see more at all of those distances and different magnification levels. So again, at the end of the day, this is a very usable optic, a very versatile optic that doesn't cost you too much in terms of size and weight. It is, you know, a little big for an LPVO. There are smaller LPVOs out there, but it does make up for it by being quite light for its size, magnification level, features, all that sort of stuff. So overall, while this is not the best optic at anything, as LPVOs aren't really the best at anything, this does provide you an immense amount of capability and value at, again, that sub $500 price point and under 20 ounces. Just over 20 ounces with a light scope mount. So at the end of the day, is it worth it? For me, absolutely. This is something that I would definitely spend my own money on, no problems whatsoever, especially if you find it on a good deal on our website for between, you know, 3, 4, under $500 in a lot of circumstances. This can be an exceptionally good buy. So with all of that out of the way, guys, let me know what you guys think of the Athlon BTR Gen 2 1 to 10 by 28mm MPVO. Let me know if there's something else that I should compare it against in the future. And with all of that out of the way, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Peace off.
Middle of plate, little low. That looked like center left. Center, center. Good hold.
Oh.
Just off the right edge. Center, center, perfect hit. Good hit. Now do you want to... Maybe... Good hit. Left side of plate. Hit, center. Right edge, off the right edge. Good hit.
Any mag.